Welcome at Pizza and More. This time we are taking a trip across the ocean, across the Atlantic. We are going to the United States of America. We are making this time a pizza which is already for a very long time already on my list, and it's also a viewer's wish. I'm Jürgen and we make this time a Detroit style pizza, so a Detroit deep dish pizza. The Detroit style pizza is inspired by a Sicilian pizza, what I already showed on my channel, the Sfincione. It's also rectangular, it's bacon in a pan, and it's a bit thicker. I have such a deep dish, but it's not 100% required to have such a deep dish. You also can use such a casserole or a deeper baking tray. Use whatever you have. They say originally the Detroit deep dish pizza was made in a drip tray for car fluids, but I'm not really sure if this is the truth. I have mine not from a car garage. The Detroit style pizza was invented 1946 by Gus Guerra in a restaurant of Buddy's Pizza. Originally on such a pizza you have to use Wisconsin brick cheese. The Wisconsin brick cheese is here in our area absolutely not available. I tried to get one, I have no one, but it's also possible to use some butter cheese or Tilsiter or even mozzarella or cheddar. For each pizza we use really a bit of cheese. Traditionally 500 grams of cheese for one pizza. If you don't want that huge amount of cheese on a pizza, then use simply less or use more if you like. Traditionally the Detroit style pizza is topped with pepperoni, so with the spicy salami with a small diameter. As I said, with the Wisconsin brick cheese and of course with a tomato sauce. But it's different than a normal Italian pizza because at first directly on the dough we add the cheese followed by the pepperoni, and at the end in racing stripes we add the tomato sauce. Like focaccia because it remembers very heavily on focaccia, so the dough or how we make the dough. Traditionally, like the focaccia, the dough is very wet. We have a hydration of 70 to 80%. We will make today a hydration of 75%, but you don't be afraid, or it's not required to be afraid about the high hydration because we will make a no-knead dough. The leavening time for a Detroit style pizza is also normally between 24 and 72 hours. It's possible to make it shorter, but then you have to use more yeast. And now I think we spoke enough words and now we will start with our dough. These are now the ingredients we need for our Detroit style pizza. This is 350 grams of flour. This is a typo 0 flour with 13% protein. I definitely would not use less flour with less protein. The reason is we have a relative long leavening time, therefore we need flour with a high baking strength. The W value of this flour is around 320. I have here 260 grams of cold water. This is then a hydration of 74%, not 75 as I said. Then I have 11 grams of fine sea salt, 1 gram of dry yeast. If you want to use fresh yeast, then please use 3 grams. And I have here 20 grams of olive oil. To make our dough, we need a bowl. And by the way, it's not required to write everything down because everything is as always in the video description. At first we pour the water in our bowl. Then we add 1/3 of the flour. And we add already the yeast. And then we start mixing this. Here you can use for mixing whatever you want. I use a whisk. If you have mixed it up, then you can add now the olive oil. And then we mix this quickly. And then we add right now the second third of the flour. And then we mix this as well. Then we add right now the salt. And we mix quickly the salt into the dough. And then we add the rest of the flour. And now we have to change the tools, because now it will not work anymore properly with a whisk. Therefore I use a wooden spoon. You also could use your hands. And we mix this as well until all the loose flour is incorporated. If this dough is mixed, then we put it by side and we take a different, or you could use also the same bowl, it doesn't matter. And here we add a bit of olive oil, because then afterwards it's easier to make stretch and fold. And this olive oil will be spread with a brush. And then the dough comes into this prepared box. And then we close the lid. And now we let the dough rest for 30 minutes. After the first 30 minutes, we make the first time stretch and fold. Therefore, we make wet hands, and then we take our dough, we stretch it, and we fold it over. And we do this around the circle. And we already can see how the structure of the dough changes. Of course, I closed again the lid of the box. And now I wait again 30 minutes and then I repeat exactly the same exercise. In total, you should do this stretch and fold exercise with a rest of 30 minutes in between, around 3 to 4 times. And then we put the dough into the fridge. In 24 hours, we take the dough out of the fridge, we make once more stretch and fold, put it back into the fridge, and 5 hours before we bake the pizza, we take it out of the fridge to give it 5 hours rest at room temperature. 3 hours ago I took the dough out of the fridge, and now we do the dough into our deep dish. The first we do, we take our deep dish and then we brush it very well with olive oil. As next, we take our dough. Wir können schon gleich mal unsere Hände mit Olivenöl einstreichen. We can already put some olive oil into our hands, and then we take the dough and put it into our prepared form. And then we press the dough only with the fingertips, because we want to keep all the air inside of our dough. Now it's not important that the dough is everywhere in the edges, because this will be done a bit later. But it's very important that we cover our form, otherwise it will dry out. And now we let it rest for around about 30 minutes. And in the meanwhile, we can prepare our tomato sauce. For the tomato sauce, we need 1 onion. If the onion is red or white, it doesn't matter. And 1 piece of garlic. And then we cut the onion and the garlic into small cubes. Then we need a pan and we add some olive oil into the pan. And the pan needs to be preheated. And then we put at first the onions into the pan. And then we fry these onions for around 2 minutes. And after 2 minutes we add the garlic. And with the garlic we continue frying for 1 additional minute. Now we have 2 possibilities. Possibility number 1 is we add the tomatoes into the pan to our onions, and we fry also the tomatoes for a while, but I think this is not required because the tomatoes are afterwards long enough in the oven. So therefore what I do right now is I add the onions and the garlic to our tomatoes. This is 1 can with 400 grams of already chopped tomatoes. I add now some fresh grated black pepper, and I add 4 grams of fine sea salt. And everything is mixed. And then we add a few leaves of fresh basil. And then our tomato sauce is already prepared. And then we can continue with our dough. And now we can have a look again that there is really enough olive oil on top of our dough. And then we use again our fingers, and then we press. Now finally, we don't press, so we let all the air in our dough. But then we check that the dough is really everywhere in our dish. And if this is finished, we take again the lid, we close again the box, or we cover the dough, and then we let it now rest for 60 minutes. Now 1 hour later we are prepared to make our Detroit style pizza. In the meanwhile I sliced the pepperoni. Then I also grated my cheese. I have here now some cheddar, some mozzarella fior di latte. The fior di latte is cut into very small pieces. And I have some butter cheese. The oven is also already preheated to 250 degrees Celsius, both sided heat. This is now the dough for our pizza, and here I have a bowl of cheese. You can see I already cut it and grated my cheese. Now I put enough cheese, especially onto the side of this dish, because then at this dish the cheese melts and caramelizes, and this makes then so the typical taste and style of a Detroit style pizza. As I already said, on such a Detroit style pizza, more cheese is here really more, so don't put too less cheese onto the pizza, however, only as much as you want. And then we grate some Parmesan cheese over it. And now it's already time for the so-called pepperoni. However, this is a spicy salami or salsiccia from Calabria. And now it's already time for the tomato sauce, and typically the tomato sauce is added in stripes. And then we put already our Chicago deep dish pizza into the oven, on the lowest level. And the baking time is around 20 minutes. And now 20 minutes later, the pizza seems to be ready, and I remove it out of the oven. And now here is our Detroit style pizza. And now I would recommend let cool down the pizza a little bit because actually it's absolutely hot. I already have here now a piece of this nice pizza on my plate. I would absolutely recommend wait some minutes because the pizza is extremely hot. So if you take it then out, and then I would also recommend not to cut with a knife or with any very hard thing in this deep dish, because otherwise you will destroy the covering of, so that it's not sticking into this dish. Therefore, use some wooden tools or plastic tools simply to take care about the dish. Now I will try a piece, especially from the crust, because there is the caramelized cheese, and let's try. And I can tell you this pizza is absolutely great. It's absolutely fantastic. It's super soft. It's crispy at the bottom. It tastes really absolutely great. It has nothing to do with a normal Italian pizza, but this is absolutely okay. It is a Detroit style deep dish pizza, and this is exactly how it should be. And I definitely love this pizza. If you like my video, it would be absolutely fantastic if you would subscribe my channel, and then we see us also in the next video. Ciao.